Yeah. Great. Well, I will just mute everyone, but I might have to ask Ralph to unmute yourself when I. Do you know how to do that, Ralph? We'll let you figure that out, and I'll just mute everyone.
I have to unmute myself.
Yes, if I just do this, that sort of mutes everyone. Just there we go. Brilliant. You've done it. So I will just say good morning. Welcome to our guest lecture with Ralph de Souza, the second violinist of the Endelian Quartet. We're really looking forward to his thoughts, memories, challenges, and ideas about this quartet, but also his history with the Endelians over, I want to say over 30 years, but I don't want to age you, Ralph. But is that right?
Over 30 years.
Exactly. So I will hand over to you, Ralph. But Ralph is very keen in, if anybody has any questions during his speaking, please do either put your hand up or write in the chat, and we can moderate and get anyone some airtime. And yeah, and I will help with scores if we need to look at the scores. I know he has his score on his iPad, so we might want to look at ours at the same time. So brilliant, Ralph. Can I hand it over to you? I'm just going to
listen. This is absolutely thrilling for me to do this, except I've never done anything like this before, so apologies. Okay. so there's no structure to this. Basically, I'm just going to sort of ramble on about basically my thoughts on this quartet and all the choices we had to make, sort of preparing it, etc. Everyone's disappeared, by the way. I've got just a few people around.
Oh, sorry. I think that's you.
How do I get rid of myself? I don't want to see myself. This is terrible.
I can remove your spotlight. How about I do that?
Oh, that's good. Oh my God, now you're the center of attention.
Yeah.
Where are all the other people gone? Okay, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Anyway, hi. So please free to sort of, ask whatever you have. Now, all I can say is that years ago, Norbert Brainen said to me, he said, all the practice you've ever done in your life, Norbert Brainen of the Amadeus Quartet, all the practice you've ever done is leading to the Beethoven quartets. But actually, he could have actually said Haydn, Mozart, Schubert. But it's a wonderful idea that all the practice you've ever done is for that. Not to play your concerto, but leading. And I think it's so right. And so I think actually we are all very fortunate to be playing chamber music, which I think most string players actually want to end up doing, because that's the most rewarding and most joyous, actually. And we've got such great music. Right, now about this piece. I gather you've all played this piece. And it's a very hard piece, actually. Actually, all Mozart is hard. Everything is hard as soon as you play it. But this, actually, we found it very difficult because it's not an immediate piece that comes straight away. Like the dissonance, for example, is fairly straightforward once you've got over the dissonance bit. It just sort of runs itself. But this one sort of creates immediate problems, actually. The very opening, for example. And this is one of the passages where we've struggled for years, going one way and another, how to play it with vibrato, without vibrato, what's the character, do we start up bow, down bow? I mean, everything, we dissected it to bits. So I'd like to ask Katie, how do you guys play the opening? I mean, what are your conclusions, or what are your discussions been?
Well, I'll allow the others to also
Yeah.
unmute. I mean, I think we started with thinking about the blend of sound, actually. I don't know if that's somewhere that you started with, but that was sort of the first, like, how to make the unison one.
Well, absolutely. This is now we get into the realms of intonation. But that's a sort of technical issue. But the fact that it's such a weird opening, because if you think E flat, you think sunny, Mozart Symphonic Concertante, do, bim, bum, bum, just very straightforward. Here, it starts off in this really sort of searching, uncertain way with this, you play E flat, and the third note is an A natural, the furthest from the octave of E flat. And I was reading somewhere that apparently he uses 8 of the chromatic notes between the octave in the first or 8 or 9, I don't know. Some musicologists came up with this. I mean, it's very unusual. Normally you'll have an arpeggio or a tune, neighboring notes. This is very, very sort of angular almost, actually. But yet in a very sort of searching way. And this morning before this thing, I thought I better do some homework before this illustrious gathering, you know. So I just watched the opening of a few quartets on YouTube playing this piece. And it was very interesting how different each one was. Some used vibrato, Amadeus, quite a little bit of vibrato, others no vibrato. A few started up bow. So, you know, most down bow. What do you guys do? Up bow, down bow?
We did down bow, but I was talking to Gabor Takash and he said he thinks up bow is the way forward.
Well, now, this discussion, now, what are the important notes? Because in his opinion, it'll be the A natural is the crunch note. Yes, I don't know if everyone agrees. And therefore you want, sorry, I've got my fiddle here. God, one rule is never demonstrate. But anyway, which resolves to the A flat, and both sort of feel natural actually on a down. And of course, we, as a quartet, we went through both. We tried down bow and we tried up bow. And actually, I think, unlike an orchestra where, you know, you have to sort of follow what the leader's doing, maybe something we never tried, and I wish we had, was to actually everyone do a different bowing. You know, so some starting up, some starting down, but getting the emphasis where the music demands it to be. And then this whole thing now about the blend, because it's very hard, because it feels there's something stark about the opening. Yes, I don't know if you agree. There's something naked. But if you, I don't know, if you do it without vibrato, it can sound almost too cold. And yet vibrato adds something to the blend. If you do too much, it takes away from the blend. So somewhere in the channel is the right, the right blend. And it's a matter of experimenting, really. I mean, we tried for a long time. In fact, it probably ended up playing in the sound of the cello to keep it slightly darker. So, so everyone following whatever the cello did. So whatever David did, we would sort of try to imitate until we didn't like what he did. And then we'd give him a good bollocking, you know. But that's actually this is a general thing about quartet playing. When you're doing intonation and stuff, the lower octave always will be the main voice. But that was just a tip. I think one of the Amadeus actually told us. But you sort of learn that very fast. So always tuning from. Can I ask, how do you guys tune when you tune your quartet? You know, with open strings. Do you have a system?
Yes, well, it's usually the cello A. My cello is very good.
You give the A.
Yeah, I give the A, and I usually if I remember, I'll tune quickly first, because sometimes I forget to do that.
But do you do anything with your C string?
Well, I sort of, it depends what piece we're playing, but I will tighten it slightly.
You raise it up slightly, because that's what we always did too, so that it balances with the E when it comes. Anyway, good. That's exactly what we did. We always took the cello A or a middle instrument. Anyway, good. Anyway, so I was going to ask you, Katie. So you start down bow, do you?
Yeah, we start down bow. I think we tried both, and we definitely felt that the E flat was the sort of. I mean, you don't know you're going to an A natural until you've got to the A natural.
Yeah.
So playing it as if the E flat wasn't in a happy E flat place felt a bit wrong to start with.
And this is the debate about starting up bow. What's wrong about it is that you don't feel you're establishing an E flat. Yeah, because you have your T, and then the surprise, and the feeling of down on that is why we would start with a down bow. But, and if you start with an upbow, you don't want it to be an upbeat to the A natural, because that sounds odd too. So actually to be honest, there's no right bowing. You know, I mean, it's a very personal thing. And then the other thing about this amazing opening, you have this, sorry, I mean, I should get my score open now, because, you know, so you have 4 bars, this mysterious thing, the A natural resolving to the A flat, and then you have this sort of figure in the second violin. I don't know, it's a bit of comedy suddenly. I think, you know, a sort of clowning, I mean, all the second violins on the chat. Very strange after this incredibly mysterious opening. But here again, you see, this actually very often happens in Mozart, where you have 2 different things going on, where the first violin, who's got the tune, is still in the sort of singing, very against the sort of comic, the sort of clowning around, that he immediately dissipates the sort of seriousness. I think that's sort of very unusual, actually, because normally you know, most composers would sustain one character for a good statement. So I mean, so when playing it, I think you should just be aware of that. Oops. Anyway, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting listening to some of the recordings where became very sort of relaxed and singy, but I think that's wrong. I think it should be in direct contrast. So you have the sort of duality of the 2 things crisscrossing. So the second fiddle should not try to play a tune like the first violin in the same character, but completely different, I think. And that was all another debating point, by the way. Actually, in quartets, you argue over every little thing. It's terrible, actually. Terrible way to exist. But actually, over time, all this sort of doesn't matter so much. It's interesting because I was a new boy in the quartet. I joined it after they had been playing for 6-7 years. So I basically had to just fit in, and they'd already resolved some of their conflicts that had happened. And every time we played one of the early pieces that they'd started with, like Mozart F major, they started with one of the hardest quartets ever. Bartok 6 was another early piece. But every piece when we came back to it, there were still these conflicts. It was amazing that after 25 years, they would still be discussing what, you know, you said this back in 1980. And this is what we decided. You know, it's quite interesting that there were still problem spots. And yet pieces that we had studied together for the first time, that had all dissipated. Anyway, getting back to this quartet, I've sort of written all these notes, but I'm not sure I should refer to any of these. Oh yes, and the other thing, actually, talking about the opening, how do you finger it?
Oh, we do first position. I do.
You did in first position. Well, with an open A.
Yeah.
All right.
I like the slight sort of nasal tone.
Right. Now you see, this is very interesting. Another fingering that I thought about, and we sometimes did, which is doing it all up. Sorry, I don't know if you can see this. Oh, let me stand down. Can you see that? So there's no shift. And so you did?
Yeah, we did that one.
Ah, but you see, the trouble is with that is that you got everyone playing open A's can be a bit sort of hard, but it depends. You see, the posho instrument, the more you can do open strings, the more expensive. You don't have to worry about it. But the other, most people, and actually we probably ended up doing Yeah. And some people do 1, 3. Anything to avoid it. So basically what I'm saying is that actually this choice is huge. So there's no right or wrong. No, enough of this. And the feeling that when you get to the forte now, in bar, I can't remember, I've written this down somewhere, 12, it feels like the movement has started. The loud. Finally, after all the searching, but actually it immediately dissipates. It sort of starts traveling. Yeah. Sort of, from bar 16, the music then sort of going in completely different directions. Another thing, when I've coached this thing, a lot of the second violins in bar, I can tell you what bar 16, all the second violinists there, they sometimes play the syncopation very legato. So, and I feel it should be driven as opposed to, it needs to be short. That's what I feel. And same with the cello. The cello line, I don't know. What do you think, Leo?
Definitely, yeah.
I mean, it's more a texture, pop, 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 as opposed to, and I've heard it very often actually played like a tune, wah, 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 trying to match the singing thing in the tune, which sort of.
Yeah, no, I think I think you should.
There should be a separation in the texture.
Yes.
Yeah.
You should sort of. It's quite clearly not a melodic roll, right? It's a sort of rhythmic roll. So.
But nor is it a sort of metronomic roll. It's not a one, saying you must play together or anything. But it's the texture. But the sort of cellist in the on the chat, you just realize it's just keeping the atmosphere bubbling. Actually, that's the role. And now comes the yap up 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 bum. How do you guys play that?
We do an up bow. Dee do 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 do.
Yeah. Do you do it melodically?
We did really.
Yeah, I think in the first half we do it quite melodically, and then in the second half, when we come back to it in the recap,
you do it differently.
Yeah, when Tamaki came in, with the second violin came in, she did it a little more sort of not so melodically. A little bit.
Well, it's a slightly sort of tricky question because you get it first in piano, but in the loud, in bar whatever that is, bar 22, 3, 4, bar 24. Oh my goodness, I love the score.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sorry, it's gone a bit blue. I have to figure out how to get rid of the blue.
Have you highlighted it? Is that why?
I've highlighted it. I have to unhighlight. There we go. Okay.
Yeah, everything's highlighted.
My goodness, you've analyzed this completely. Totally. I love it.
Yes, sorry. I don't know how to do that though.
Oh, don't worry.
Ignore me for a second.
So the yap up 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 up.
Yeah. So we that's a very difficult corner, isn't it? We found it challenging how to round off the cadence before it
is,
and starting anew.
Because the forte when it comes in, that's obvious what it should be. Yap up 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 up. I always think of it as someone guffawing away, laughing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the character's very sunny and upbeat. Yes. Disrupting, but the bit before I feel should have an element of that as opposed to just purely singing. I mean, they should be the same family, not completely different. And somewhere I read some sort of funny analysis of this. This is about this descending scale that appears everywhere. But I don't know how much he was conscious of that or not. Probably very conscious, but I don't know. A musicologist would need to know. But the question is whether how much you separate in the quiet. Pop, 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 yeah, pop. And I don't know, when I'm sort of teaching, coaching people, I always get them to sing that passage. And depending on how they verbalize, if they go pop, 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 they would never say ya ha 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 ha. They always pop pop pop. They will always articulate each note, you know, in the syllables they use. It's either pop pop or ta 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 or mum mum. They wouldn't say mum, but you know what I'm saying. They would never sing ya ha 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 ha. That. So that articulation needs to be reflected in the stroke. I don't know. So Katie, do you have your fiddle there? How did you play?
Yes. Well,
I mean, it's as a.
I felt I started a little more melodically because of the D flat.
Yeah.
And then I became a little shorter in the third bar. That was my.
Oh, right. So you go on.
So I sort of.
And that sounds absolutely right. And then the loud, when you have it. Oh, I see. So you kept it sort of similar, because to me that feels it should be slightly
stickier.
Well, but it changes as it goes along. Not the same. I would change it. Well, so this is another personal thing. You know, yeah, because I would sing ya pa 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 ya pa pa. The first one's longer than ya pa 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 pi ya pa. But you know.
We did notice in watching some last week, 2 weeks ago, when we were watching some different versions of this, I noticed that a lot of quartets do a variety of bowings around that passage when it passes around.
Absolutely, and actually, the more variety there is, the better. I mean, have you guys noticed? I don't know, having lived with this piece for how long? A few weeks. I'm talking about all the participants here. That all the movements have a very similar pulse. So you have, if that's the tempo you take, maybe that's slightly too fast for it, but drum boom, drum dum, dee da bee da bee da bee da ba, bee dum, dee da dee ba 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 dee da dee da. I mean, there's a similar pulse going on through this whole piece actually, and somehow. You know, I mean, there's not that much change in the basic pulse. So I think any variety is always good, actually, and never the same. Yeah. Now
that's the thing, Ralph. If I may,
yeah.
like when somebody comes up with one good idea, like how they should play that, dee do 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 dom.
Yeah.
If I like it, the trouble is, if we all do that, then I'm sick of it within 3 or 4 times.
Exactly, so, but thank God that's why we have different people playing it, because everybody brings their own character to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. As long as it's in the same family, you know, as long as it belongs to each other, that it's not so vastly different, you know. And I suppose actually that's what makes so good quartet playing really, is to respond to things but not play it identically. You don't want identical playing. You know, there are a few places when you want homogeneous playing, you know, if it's a chorale-like figure, if you're playing, you know, something, but actually, most of the time, you're trying to be your own part, which is different. And you're trying to be as different as possible. Most people think quartet playing is playing absolutely the same. Not at all. Yeah. And actually, that's a common fault. They think, God, you play so well together. I mean, I couldn't tell the difference between your instrument and the, but actually you don't always want that sort of backhanded compliment, you know, because you do want to be individuals.
Well, the piece has to be alive, doesn't it? You have to be sort of surprised by what people are.
Whatever music you're playing, yes. No. Yeah. And now this second theme, bar 40. Again, he's playing around with all sorts of things here. How would you guys, what would you say as a character? Anybody?
Well, I suppose it's, serious followed by a big joke or a big laugh.
Yeah, but you go, bravo. Brilliant, right? Brilliant sort of figure. Now you get there's something introverted.
Yes. And then you get it repeated by two different instruments as well. So the variety has to change.
Absolutely. I mean, the character difference has to be, and the viola and second violin in response to this tune, a real big sigh.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be viewed as a sigh, this huge appoggiatura, really longing. Mm-hmm. And then dissipated, completely changed. And then you have this sort of military figure, some military dance, whatever. I mean, it's incredible. All the characters in this 8 bars.
It's like a mini opera.
Well, exactly. All the characters, and this has to really come out. So you've got the longing to something introverted, dissipated, and then this sort of clown thing again.
Yes. Yeah.
And how do you guys bow? That figure.
I did it the other way. I did up, down, down, but with the emphasis on the up.
Yeah, yes, you see, but to me that I think we probably did the same, but I was thinking about this and I think that's wrong. And everybody I see on YouTube, they all do that. And you have to avoid the bump on the down bow because the phrasing should be whatever the notes are. Well, I don't have them here.
I was just thinking I should do that.
Bowing. So not, but everyone does that actually because it's convenient. Because it needs a retake. Because something happened. And that one on and up. So anyway, that's just my thoughts on that. As opposed to because then you'll get the accent on the wrong person. Anyway, but now this leads to this funny scale business again, but elongated. I don't know how important that is or not. So do you all do the same bowing when you have this tune?
Approximately. I think the end of it, I think Carmen does a slightly different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but that's good. I think that's good. And do you divide?
I do. I found it really hard to not
do it all in one bow.
No, I should have done.
No. But I don't think it really matters so much, actually. As long as it's just a one phrase.
Yes.
You know, it doesn't matter whether you change the bow or not. I don't think it really matters, to be honest. But anyway, that's a. But then what about how do you bow that?
So I felt that was a little more dark because of the C minor, like a little flatter.
Yes, except the rhythm.
I know.
The rhythm has to be, you know,
I think I do a little shoe shine, you know, up, da 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 da.
I think that's sort of right, actually. I would do that too, yeah.
But it also, I feel it changes, you know how in the repeat. So it's a bit comical. I think what I try to do is a little comical. I always think of like the clown in Don Giovanni, his Leporello, his servant, who's a comical guy. So, you know, but then the second time when it comes around, it kind of, I try to do it so that it melts into this scale that the second violin starts, maybe.
Right.
But I keep the same bowing.
Yeah.
I soften it a
But
bit the
now
second time.
with this rhythm, this is a rhythm that I find, you know, people who don't play sort of professionally find it hard actually, because they tend to as opposed to being one. So the fast note belongs to the next note, and there's no stopping. It's a so it tends to be lazy, the rhythm. So that's a danger. And so my suggestion is always to think of the param as one gesture and not many, you know, dum, ba-da, but, dum, ba-da, ba-da. Don't think of the scale, but think of dum, param, param. So almost double dotting it actually. Although Katie would want it to be darker because of the key.
I always feel it's like a preamble of the trio. I always feel that we're getting
somehow,
yeah.
Yes. But maybe the darkness comes from the sound, but not affecting the rhythm. Yeah, I mean that's the balance of the two. Anyway, that's just a thought. But that rhythm comes in all sorts of music, and it always tends to be da ba da ba dum ba but I always link it to the longer note, the quick note to the longer note. It's always a good thing to have in one's head. And then, Carmen, you're talking about preparing for the second violin. The danger for the second violin is that we come in late because the sound doesn't speak. So the second violin has to be absolutely ready, already ready to play, not and then play. By that time, it's already too late. The train will have gone. Yeah, so just whoever's playing second violin, just be ready with the sound in your head to take over. That's a danger spot that we always came across with. And then I've just written 65. Yeah, Leo, I presume you play all that from 65 onwards short, right? Because I
play it detached. I wouldn't say short. I do
detached. Yeah.
Yes. Definitely.
Sort of, yeah. So
and very loud.
I've heard it playing very well, exactly. But I've heard it playing very sort of ba ba ba, sort of definite separation.
Yeah, I'm thinking
the
sort of
at the end
brass
jump bum, not da da bum. Yeah, none of that. No, yeah. I'm sure you don't. But I'm just warning our fellow participants that's always the all there's a bum bum bum, that sort of feeling. And then yes, the double bar. How do you guys think? So viola and cello, when you come in after the first and second play the opening of the double bar.
Probably, I mean, it's already established this forte change of character, but maybe I think of it as both a reinforcement, but also a disruption somehow.
Yes,
of what the first violins
I think that's exactly what it is. I think it's an interruption.
Yeah.
So in fact, I would always suggest coming in slightly early.
Oh,
so they play sort of a scrum, rugby scrum, sort of, almost early.
Yes.
It becomes too fat then. I think there's a feeling of coming in, before they have even finished, really. Anyway, that's my impression of this bit. And then you start all this now this is just going key changing things. Now I always had a struggle with my arpeggio. I don't know about you guys, the other instruments, but I had second violin. But Tamaki's not here. I wanted her help. What she did.
They're all a challenge, yes.
Yeah, but I discovered a way of trying to avoid shifting. actually, this has been my thing since lockdown. I've been spending my time going back through all my old repertoire, trying to eliminate as much of shifting as possible, because I keep missing all my shifts. So going to go. But anyway, in this case, I've come up with this funny fingering. I don't know. Shall I demonstrate this? So this is the second violin arpeggio. I'm afraid I don't know any cello fingering. Yeah? So it's this. Normally it's jumping up, but I want to avoid it. So then I go to second position. I don't know if you can see that.
Definitely.
Yeah. So you start in first position, right? Or first position, then just shift to second position with an extension. Then back to first. It's it's a very awkward position, awkward passage actually. So just to recap, it's first position, second position with a 1, 2, 4, then back to first. Yeah, and all the figures I would always do. Go on. I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Oh, no, I think that's...
Katie, unmute yourself.
I'm just testing it. No, I'm just practicing. I'm trying it
I
out.
want to hear you practice.
No, you don't want to hear that. I'm just trying it out and seeing if my
though.
extension was any good. No, you don't want to hear me. I'm just trying it out.
But tell me, demonstrate. Go on.
I would wonder whether staying in second position longer would work. I don't know.
I don't know. I just find it easier to just do it in blocks.
Yeah. Because it's always those, in fact, it's not just in these kind of places, but it's always, I don't know if everybody else finds this, but little shifts to one note, or like da 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 da. That
to be avoided. To be avoided, and because actually, to be honest, a violin fingerboard is not actually that big, so you can actually stretch quite a bit. You know, we the trouble is the way we've studied for years is playing positions, which is very good. You need to know where your octave is, but actually, as soon as you get beyond a certain level, you need to play out of position. So you're playing in between positions. So you're basically playing, instead of first position, you're playing 1.5. You know, and third position is sort of, you know, or second position is a very little used position and very useful as a hinge to other positions. So you should be playing in between positions.
Just out of curiosity, what do you do with your thumb whilst you're doing? Do you have your thumb moving between the two?
The thumb is always in the higher position. The reason is, okay, can you do an experiment? First position, play an E flat. Since we're an E flat, play an E flat. And with your hand in first position, how far can you stretch your fourth finger? Okay, how far? To what note?
F sharp.
Okay,
G,
now put your first finger on B flat. Play B flat on the A string.
Yeah.
Okay. Play. I can't see it. Now stretch down to D.
Oh, I see.
There you go. So before, with your hand in first position, you can only stretch your F sharp, which is nothing, but actually your hand in a higher position. Elizabeth Holden, can you demonstrate? Go on, I want to see that, because actually it was very good. Because can I just see what you're doing?
Yeah, don't worry, Liz. You can just do it silently if you want, but just let us see your left hand.
Yeah, I need to be able to see your left hand.
There we go.
You need to move slightly to the camera left.
Yeah, there we go. Yes.
Yeah, good. Okay, yeah. So put it on a G, fourth thing on a G, And play an E flat. But stretching.
Stretch down from the third position.
Stretch down.
Yeah.
So third position, but stretch down, not leaving the G. Yeah, that looks good. I can't see your first finger, but that looks good. Now try doing that same stretch, starting in first position, stretching up. Yeah. Okay, all this goes to show actually that if you want to stretch, your thumb has to be in the higher position so you can get a bigger stretch. This is just a bit of violin technique. I'm sure the cellists doing that all the time. I mean, that's sort of that second nature. But we haven't been taught that really. But it's just a principle, and you just cut the distance. Yeah. I mean, you can go, crazy. And so, Paganini had an incredible stretch, but actually, so do we all. But we never use it. Now, there was something I was going to. Oh yes, 75. I've got viola syncopes, something short again. How do you guys bow? Bless you. How do you bow that? I would sort of, yeah.
Ah.
I don't know what you do.
No, that's different. We go down, down, there, up, down, up, down.
I would, because that should be.
Yeah, show us your bowing again. That's really interesting.
So you do?
Oh, no,
I would
down. Okay.
But that's a personal thing, as opposed to it's very hard to catch.
Yeah.
You just use the weight of the bow. But that's again
great.
But it's again sort of personal taste. But just to help people who are struggling with that figure. There are different ways to do it. Oh my God. Oh, now the interpretation of, so there was 75 viola, written viola syncopation short. Yeah, ba, 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 not ba, 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 ba. You're basically with the cello, the viola and cello in bar 79. Yeah? As one figure. And the next thing I've got written is these 77, how to play the chords accompanying the first violin, ba, 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 ba. Because they sometimes tend, when I coach this, is a danger that they sound lazy. The forte piano has to disappear straight away, and leaving space for the first violin figure. Yeah.
No, I'm afraid we disagree.
Good, excellent.
We went
because
for
of the diminished. You want her held.
Yes, we go for a long forte piano to differentiate it from the sforzando.
Oh right! Oh my God, that's really good. Okay, good.
But it's a very active forte piano. It's not a heavy sort of, but it's a very sort of intense forte, and then merging into quite an intense piano as well. So very involved with the bow the whole way.
Oh right, I think he's written the piano as a subito, sort of, as opposed to a long accent. I feel it's a short accent, but there you are, to be discussed.
Yes, we didn't try that actually. So I
know, because to me it's a surprise.
Uh-huh.
Well, we did the first time we played it. We sort of naturally did that, but then I started wanting it to just be a bit longer and a bit more.
Yeah, but that's good too.
I guess it's the attack bit that I like, not so sharp, the attack, but in terms of the decay, I never felt that it was in my way, because by the time they decayed, I'm going down, but actually the first violin line climbs so quickly that there's never a balance issue with that forte. And so by the time I came down the arpeggios, I always felt that there was enough space for me without having to push. But it was just.
But you see, I think it's such a shocking chord from where it's come from. Yeah, ba, ba, bung. I mean, it's like it should be a jolt, actually, whatever that is. But the jolt being a long jolt, I don't know. It feels it's a, a shock is not a long. What I mean, it's one of those, and you sort of, and then it's sort of suspended. Then it starts traveling again, and then a different harmony. And those might be able to vary, but I think the shocking element must not be lost, becoming expressive. That's just my opinion, Again,
yeah, that's fair enough. It's probably a case of it's a case of also if we did that really shocking one, then and if we did that every time, the shock would wear off, wouldn't it? So we would have to.
You can't.
Yeah, exactly.
Every harmony is different. It'll change, and that's you leave it to your taste or what. And then these crotchets are 93. I've written down. Bum, 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 bum. I mean, it's a very odd way to write it, isn't it? With a 3 dots and then slur. I don't know how do you interpret that?
We did quite long down.
Yeah, it's feeling, and I wonder why he's written dots when he could have either written lines, because there's a feeling of sustained. I agree with you. My instinct was to do that.
Do you feel? I don't know if I notice Mozart doing lines very often. Do you find
No, I don't know of any actually. But I'm terrible with my dots and dashes. My Morse code is terrible. But I feel it's probably because he wants for the piano. Bum, 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 bum. I mean, I think you could almost play it the same if you did separate bows almost. Bum, 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 bum. I mean, basically, I feel from 93 to the recapitulation, he's sort of easing this figure, this longing, this crying figure. It's becoming more and more legato and more dissipating this slightly fist shaking for him. I mean, I'm sure it was Beethoven who written fortune on every note or something like that, that sort of, but Mozart being slightly more refined, I guess. But there is pain on those chords, which the violin then dissipates. But now the lower 3 parts, while Katie's, I feel that the lower parts are in a different sort of time signature or something. The beats are much slower. I don't know, I always felt, you got this this sort of crotchet figure, then so basically crotchets and then minims, bar beats actually, with the sighing of the lower parts. And trying to convey that can be tricky. Partly because there's a blooming metronome going on in our heads. And we have to fight that, because this is a very sort of spoken bit. And there's a danger that this constant metronome that's going on should sort of stop here, I feel anyway. Enough rabbiting on, bloody hell. And there's just a couple of 95. This is what I've come across with coaching this, that the diminuendo, this easing back into the recapitulation, tends to happen way too early. So save something in the tank to be able to come away. There's a danger, that it becomes too, the pain must still be there, and then fall in. Anyway, that's enough of the first movement. Anybody have any questions? I'm talking way too much. This is ridiculous.
Yes, load.
There's a question. Carmen, I'll leave that to you.
All right. Yes, we have one. You mentioned style as when you were playing Beethoven. how do you think differently in style when playing Mozart? As in, you know, when the Andelians approach different composers, do you play them in different styles?
To be honest, I don't think we've ever even talked about styles, because we try to do the expression really. And it's a very good question. I suppose in the case of this, yeah, bam, 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 we wouldn't go over the top and make it absolute dramatic. But I don't know if that's because it's Mozart or because that's the framework we're in for this piece. I don't know.
I guess that would sort of extend to thinking, would you use your bow in different ways for the Mozart versus Beethoven versus Brahms, Bartok, you know, the attack or the how flat one would play, or what, or is it just, it sort of comes naturally from the music and then you respond?
Actually, you don't think about it. You don't, I think we always went for the expression of it. And then, but there are many factors actually. In a room, if you do an attack, it might be way too much. You go out to a hall, and you think you're doing the same attack, they can't hear it. You know, I mean, so it depends on the perspective of it. So now, does one adjust for playing in a big hall? We tended not to. You know, if say it was the acoustic was incredibly boomy, we didn't really change our tempo, to be honest, to suit, although some people do. Maybe that's too firm a rule, I don't know.
Do you think maybe that your ears anyway adjust?
Well,
as
adjust,
in,
exactly.
it takes time to hear it, so you
happens,
play differently.
But it's not conscious. It's not conscious. We don't think, oh, it's a boomy acoustic, therefore we can't play so fast. I don't think we think like that. Occasionally we always send someone out to go and listen. And then they would say, actually, we need to be really clear because everything is dying away and we need to articulate more. Things like that we would, but we wouldn't change our basic concept, of the piece to suit an acoustic, never. But this thing about, of course, one naturally, instinctively plays Bartok differently from you would play Mozart. I mean, it's a different language, but you don't sort of think specifically, oh, I won't do this, or I will do this, and it's a sort of natural process. I don't know if that answers the question, actually, but I'm skirting the issue, maybe.
Absolutely, no, it's great. We have another question here, probably getting more into, your quartet experiences. How do you feel about the role of second violin? What is your perspective on that, and also from being in the Andelians?
Well, to me, actually, the best second violinist is one you don't notice as such. So you don't notice. So basically, you shouldn't be noticed. It's a bit like vibrato. If you notice vibrato, it's not good, because it'll either be too fast or too slow or this or that. It should be just right. So if the second violin is not up to the job, you'll notice it. Terrible. And if the second violin is too prominent, you don't want to be listening to the second violin part. Then that's not good either. Actually, you need to be, you need to let the, whoever has the tune shine. And now it comes to the most important thing, I think, in a quartet is actually knowing your role. But not your role amongst the four of you, but the role, what is required in the score. Because, you might be playing a second violin part, and suddenly you have to play a first fiddle part. You're suddenly playing the tune. And the first violin needs to know how to accompany that. Sometimes you're playing a bass line, while the cello's high up in the gods, playing some melody or something. And sometimes you're playing a descant or accompaniment. These are the hats we need to change immediately. And the interesting thing is, actually, you can't practice this on your own. You can't do individual practice saying, oh, now I'm going to play a descant, now I'm going to play. It doesn't work. And this is what rehearsing is, actually, is rehearsing and learning your roles and practicing it during rehearsal. And then a concert, you're just adjusting all the time. I don't know if that answers your question, but actually that is key, knowing your role at the moment in the music.
Mm.
Um,
Could I ask you, just you touched on rehearsing. Could
Yeah.
you give us a few glimpses of how one structures, when
right.
structured rehearsals? And
we tended to rehearse, actually, when I first joined, we used to rehearse from 2 to 6:30, which later got cut down to 2 to 6, which is great. Because we found we would do 2 hours, have a half-hour break, have tea, play bridge, very important, bridge, then another 2 hours, and that was great. But actually, later on, we found the longer we were together, the less we spoke, which probably you'll find as well. You don't need to go over everything, battling hammer and tongs, because I mean, you have to go through those battles actually, and discussions, and tearing things apart and letting them settle, and knowing when to back off. I mean, all that, that's human behavior actually, in a group. but you learn that fast. But it was easy for me because I had to just fit. There was no time for me to sort of say, why are you doing that? We had a concert straight away, so I just had to just play my role and get going. And then little by little, you sort of, we can start adding things. But rehearsing, what tended to happen was Andrew, who was our first violin, he would decide what he thought we should rehearse. And we would always tend to start the rehearsal by playing what was coming up first on the program, cold. That was always and that's quite conscious actually, to do that.
Do you mean playing through or rehearsing, like just?
No, we would usually play through a good chunk, if not the whole movement actually, of whatever we had, just getting used to the fact. Suppose we usually started with a Haydn quartet, we would start with that Haydn quartet without having warmed up even sometimes, just to see how things fell in place. And then we would then jump around. But Andrew would decide what, because he, the first fiddle part was always the hardest, as Katie would no doubt say. But and then we found that 4-hour rehearsals was the sort of optimum, because one gets tired after a bit, and then actually the rehearsing becomes rather mechanical and sort of pointless in a way. Actually, what else about rehearsing? I wrote something down. Oh, like my brother was in the Wellinger quartet for a time. And they used to have this funny routine where they would decide, okay, it's Tuesday, right, we're going to rehearse all Tuesday. And so they'd arrange to meet at 10 o'clock and keep it open-ended, until they'd finished. And he said every rehearsal, they would arrive at 10, maybe 10:30, they would have tea. Nothing would get done because it was this open-ended rehearsal. And, before time, there was lunchtime and they would have nice. And he said, actually, it's hopeless. But we never had that, partly because everyone was doing other things. We were all doing freelance stuff. And so we have a very strict, and actually we've got much more done, I think, that way. And he said, I wish we had done that, because there was a lot of time just doing nothing, just socializing, which is nice.
Can I just quickly ask whether you, how you get through all the repertoire? Because that's what I find a challenge in a 4-hour rehearsal. If you have 3 quartets for one concert and maybe another 3 for another concert,
yeah.
it's tricky.
I suppose after time, you sort of get to know the repertoire. I mean, so you get to know it to whatever. You get to know the notes and stuff, but you're always changing things. That never stops. But we would drip feed stuff in. We knew something was coming up. They said we hadn't played for 2-3 years. We would start a long time, not just before the concert. It would start a few weeks back. We'd do a movement here, just drip feeding stuff. And particularly if there's a new piece coming up, then we would have a few days of intense work on that piece, and then we would leave it, do other stuff, and then nearer the concert we would come back. So there was always a sort of rolling drip feeding of repertoire in. No, because I mean, for you, it's every concert's a mega, you know, all these 3 violin concertos, actually. No, I mean, it's an awful lot of notes. You know, I don't know how Andrew did it, actually, but he did. He was, you know, luckily, he was that type of person. He had that type of brain. He was a mathematician, actually. So, you know, he
Can I ask, you know, to your rehearsal style and as you got to know each other, I mean, you're a long-standing quartet. And so one question that came up, as a quartet with, you know, not so many personnel changes, has the dynamic changed? Did it change over the years? And how so? How do you think that compares to younger quartets today?
I wouldn't know about younger quartets today. I mean, what amazes me when I hear younger quartets today is how advanced everyone is. It's amazing. You know, repertoire that we struggled with, that they sort of seem to play from memory. Like we commissioned Tom Addis, his first quartet. And, you know, we really battled with that. Spent hours and hours, and now it's like in the standard repertoire and they're sort of playing it from memory. Incredible, you know. But, you know, and then we heard stories of the Amadeus spending a year to learn Bartok 5. And I don't think they ever played it, performed it, but they spent a year, you know, I mean, and yet it's like one of the standard pieces. And I think this progression just goes on. And we are just cogging the chain, you know, it's, and the youngsters today will hopefully have survived coronavirus. I know there've been a lot of changes, actually. It's been terrible for them because a lot of them, you know, survive, you know, trying to get their mortgages to pay and things, families. It's impossible. I mean, you're probably going through similar. You know, it's very, very difficult, especially in this country. In America, they have university, you know, jobs where they can go and teach, and they have time to learn things. But here, we have to learn it on the hoof. You know, doing other things, paying the bills. It's difficult. But yet, the rewards, we get paid in heaven. There's a joke, you know, how does a quartet player become a millionaire? Do you know this? You start off as a billionaire. Anyway.
There's a question here in the chat for you, Ralph. Do you listen to and enjoy particular composers, and are they the same as those of the quartets you play?
I find it very hard, actually, listening to violin music, say, because I'm so involved with what's happening. I'd much rather go to a piano recital. Ooh, sorry. Sorry, I had to cut them off. I don't know how to switch this off now. Anyway, quartet recitals, I actually love going to, because I don't know, I feel I'm not so critical anymore. I used to be very critical, but somehow over time, you know, I feel I learn from this, and I love going to other people's classes and things. It's very interesting getting different opinions. You know, I loved it when you say, actually, we disagree with you, but that's when it's all starts. Then discussions start, and you know, you start thinking that was very interesting to me. But I have a block when I go to hear a violin recital. It's terrible, you know. I'm thinking of silly things.
Take
I'm
me
not
back.
listening to the music.
Yeah. That's it. There was one other question. Sorry, Ralph, we should let you go and we should say thank you. But just before we do, I just want to ask your feeling about new music and how you approach that. I know there's a lot of quartets playing a lot of new music and thinking about younger composers, and how did you approach that in the quartet? And obviously you were playing pieces by Addis, and
well, it sounds low, but we were terrible, to be honest, because we were very slow learners. You know, we're not as quick as you guys now. You can just sit down and read everything. We took ages, and I must say I was never that keen, partly because of the time element involved. It's not fair on these composers, actually, to be honest. Because, you know, you'd spend ages preparing a piece and then you'd have one performance and that's it. It's awful for the composer. I don't know, you know, So that's great that there's been a surge of interest. But one problem I have actually is when teaching, because we teach at the Guildhall and coaching groups, no one seems to play the standard repertoire. Everyone comes preparing some unknown piece of quartet, you know, sort of interesting, but you're thinking, you haven't played a Haydn quartet, and yet you're playing Ethel Smythe. I mean, nothing against Ethel Smythe, sorry, but you know what I'm saying, an unusual, and the more unusual the piece, the prouder they are to play it. But they have not been brought up on Mozart quartets, on Beethoven quartets. So the first pieces they're learning are, you know, some out of the way pieces. And I don't know, I just feel they're missing out on learning the groundwork and then finding undiscovered pieces. And there's a danger, I feel. Everyone is just going for, and it's slightly a novelty value, actually, to say that they've done this odd piece, you know, becomes their selling card. Maybe that's how careers have to develop. I don't know. It's sad because the core repertoire that we all play and love, and we're lucky to have, is sort of not being taken up by the students. You know, so I'm sort of surprised by that. I mean, I think all quartets, say, for the first 2 years should only play the classics, learn the language, and then do. But I'm a bit radical that way.
We could just spend some days playing Haydn. I mean, that's the goal.
Haydn will teach anybody everything about playing music, actually, not just chamber music, but playing music. I mean, that's why we are all so lucky here, because we are playing actually what is the pinnacle of why we play the violin, why we're playing in stringed instruments. You know, we're just very, very lucky.
Well,
you know,
thank you so much, Ralph. You know, we would love to sit here all day and listen to you talk about all of it.
Movements, but that's all right.
But it's brilliant, and we really appreciate all your thoughts, and we love hearing your challenges for bowings and fingerings, and we will all think about our shifting now and how we can minimize our shifts and make them.
But can I say something to all the participants? Have courage to change things and to experiment. You know, if something is not working, there's probably a reason for it. And the best thing to do, the best teacher actually, is to look in the mirror. If it doesn't look right, it probably isn't. And a tape recorder. Those two is all the only things you need, actually. Yeah, and then all the rest is just someone giving you opinions of things and just pushing you in one direction or another. But in the end, you have to decide and to have the courage to do things, to express. It's amazing how often, you know, with students particularly, where they just need to be told, go on, no one will die, just play what you feel and then change it. Your colleagues will tell you if it's over the top or not, but don't immediately go. You know, it's interesting, when you sit down to read music, everyone says, how fast does it go? First question. If you don't know the piece, maybe that is the right question, but actually soon it should be, what is the character? You know, what is the character? That will tell you the tempo, the articulation, it'll tell you everything, actually. So always just question the character of everything, in one phrase even, you know, and don't let it pass.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Ralph.
Cheers,
it was
everybody.
really interesting.
Good luck with your performances.
Thank you. We're all looking forward to Wednesday, where we'll attempt to do lots of different things. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. See you all Wednesday morning.
Will you send me a tape of the concert?
Oh,
I'd love to hear it.
Sure.
I want to see all the bowings.
Yes.
Bye.
Thank you,
bye,
Ralph.
everyone.
Ralph.
Cheers. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Wonderful.